The Queen's Jewish Link presents the Jewish Living Podcast, the show that examines the many facets of Orthodox Jewish life. Here's your host, Ezer Mizion.
If you have ever been in a situation where you or someone you know has needed a bone marrow transplant, it is more than likely that you're familiar with Ezer Mizion. Ezer Mizion is the largest Jewish bone marrow donor registry in the world, and have helped to serve an insane number of patients throughout its 20-year history. It's always nice to hear about the good work an organization does, and that is why we invited on this week's guest.
Hi, I'm Hadassah Somosi, Director of Resource Development at Ezer Mizion.
Hadassah will discuss all things Ezer Mizion, including more than one way that you can get involved. Hadassah, thank you so much for joining me this week. First of all, let's get a little bit of a history about Ezer Mizion. For those of us who don't know what it is, what is Ezer Mizion? What do they do, and how did it start?
Thank you for having me. It's really an honor to represent such an important organization here in Israel. I'm talking to you from Israel. What is Ezer Mizion? Ezer Mizion in Israel is a household word. Ezer Mizion in Israel is one of Israel's largest and best known health support organizations. It's really a mega organization. It was founded in 1978 by Hanania Chalak, who is our international chairman today. But at the time, he had no intention whatsoever of creating such a big organization. He just went out there to help people, to do chesed, to help people who are facing health challenges. And that came from a personal experience where his father-in-law was hospitalized in a very unexpected way, very shortly after his own wedding, Hanania's wedding. And he saw what goes on with patients and the help the families need. And so he started with 8 neighbors, started cooking meals to send to hospital companions, to provide meals for people who are left at home. Let's say there was a child there hospitalized and his parents were with him, and there were other children at home who needed food, and there was nobody provided. And then he got some volunteers to come and replace parents who needed to go home, needed just a break from being with their kids in the hospital, and so on. And then it just, through the years, ever since then, has grown and grown and grown to a mega, very, very highly professional organization that's covering a huge sector of Israel's population and beyond. I think for service provision, we serve over 700,000 people in the course of every year.
Wow.
And it just keeps growing. Yeah.
So let me ask you, who are your clients? Who do you serve? And I know that Ezer Mizion is a huge organization, and today, for the purposes of this conversation, we're going to be focusing on a small section of what Ezer Mizion does. But if you can give everybody just an overall view of who does Ezer Mizion serve, like what are the divisions of it, and then we'll focus more specifically on the reasons that we're here today.
Okay, thank you. So I would say, and that's a very good approach, I would say that the main target populations would be beginning from children with special needs all the way across the spectrum to the elderly, to our geriatric services department. Following that, I would say our mental health rehabilitation services division, and then our cancer support services, which includes our bone marrow donor registry and all these support services. And then I would say, well, listen, we also serve just anyone who is facing any type of a health challenge or crisis. And we have a wide range of auxiliary services, which includes free medical referrals, advocacy and entitlements insurance unit, food distribution services, free ambulance transport, volunteer car transport, and medical and rehab equipment loan, also for adults and also for pediatric rehab. So it's a huge spectrum, and we're dealing, like you could imagine, with a lot of people in many different cases.
Right, so it's really grown into something that's way more than even you might have thought of that this organization could have done, like even in, forget the beginning stages, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, it just exploded. Correct?
Well, it absolutely exploded. And I'll tell you personally, I'm working in resource development here. I many times feel that it is my biggest challenge is keeping up with everything that is going on in this huge organization. It's really like working for 10 organizations.
Wow.
It's every different department, every different service has its own, it would be like a separate organization.
So the last question I have before we get into the bone marrow registry, which is the primary point of this conversation, how did you get involved with Ezer Mizion?
How did I get involved? Well, actually, the truth is that our international chairman, Rav Hanania Cholak, he always says, everybody in Israel is ultimately going to have to come or is going to reach Ezer Mizion. You choose how you want to come, on the giving side or on the receiving end. And he told that to me when I was a mother with young children and as a native English speaker here in Israel, working in fundraising and working in offices. He asked me for some help in the fundraising as a volunteer. And I said, of course, I'm going to help you. I want to help you. I want to be part of Ezer Mizion because I know the important things that you're doing. And then along the line, and I was volunteering here and there, just being a little bit helpful. And then the coin flipped, and I needed help. So I switched from coming to Ezer Mizion on the giving end to coming to Ezer Mizion on the receiving end. And then I experienced what it's like, but that was very mild. And then it, Baruch Hashem, it passed, it went over. And then about 20 years ago, they turned to me and they said, now we really need you on board. Please join us, but not as a volunteer. And I've been here ever since.
Phenomenal. Wow.
Yeah.
So let's get into the bone marrow registry part of this. So first of all, overall question, how does the bone marrow registry work?
How does the bone marrow registry work? Well, I think in order to understand how the registry works, let's talk about what bone marrow transplants are and who needs them.
Okay.
So bone marrow transplants are a misnomer. They're not bone marrow transplants. They are actually stem cell transplants. And who needs a stem cell transplant? Stem cell transplants are a therapy protocol for people who have about 100 different types of blood illnesses. And today it's used as a cutting edge therapy for autoimmune diseases. Now, in order for a stem cell transplant to be successful, the patient, the recipient, and the donor have to have precise genetic matching. Mm-hmm. Exact matching. Now, about 25%, this is an international statistic, about 25% of the patients who need a stem cell transplant will find it among their immediate family, which means only siblings. That's how it works. You can't get from your parents, you can get from your siblings because they share the genetic, whatever the parents give, the markers, the genetic markers.
But that's only 25%.
Now, that's only 25%. So, and all around the world, there are about 75% of people who need a stem cell transplant, and they will not find it among their immediate family. So this happened all over the world as soon as stem cell transplants came into being a therapy option. And so many people were not finding donors among the family members that different medical centers started opening up registries, like a bank of potential donors who could possibly be a genetic match for a patient who needs a stem cell transplant. Now, I want to tell you something. As much as we simplify it and make it sound easy and wow, it's really, a stem cell transplant is a very serious, heavy-duty medical procedure. Not all patients can undergo it. It takes a very, very rigorous preparation, and the recovery is really, really not simple. But with Hashem's help, people who have it can really come back to the land of living. So for many of these patients, a stem cell transplant is the last hope of survival, meaning that the doctors have tried everything else, and this is the only option left. So imagine this, you have a patient, the only therapy option left is a stem cell transplant. They don't have a matching donor in their family, and they're looking for an unrelated matching donor in registries around the world. When a transplant team come to a patient and tell him, we looked everywhere and we could not find a match for you anywhere. That is basically, they're telling them what? You have a death sentence. We have no solution for you. You have no, you can go home and die. And that's basically it. Now, the transplant happens with a matching patient, which is genetic matching. And I don't want to get into anything that sounds discriminatory, but genetic matching is very closely related to the ethnic community that you come from. And especially so for Jews, because through the generations, the Jewish nation has lived in segregated, separate communities. So, so much so that when you have an Ashkenazi Jew, his genetic makeup will match usually another Ashkenazi Jew. But a Sephardic Jew will have to look for somebody who was from his ethnic community, meaning the likelihood of a Moroccan Jew for finding a match in the Taimani, in the Yemenite community, is very minimal. He will most likely find a match within his own ethnic community. So at the risk of sounding racist, and please forgive me, I don't mean anything, but you know something? Jewish patients around the world before 1998 had a minimal likelihood of finding a match anywhere in registries anywhere around the world, because there were very few Jewish donors registered. So here in Israel, because Ezer Mizion is dealing in cancer support, and we saw a lot of our patients were dying, and we were asking, our support teams were asking, what happened? Why are so many of these patients not surviving? And when Hanania Chalak heard that what they need is a matching donor, he said, let's open a registry, a stem cell registry, or what they call a bone marrow registry. And that's what happened. So in 1998, Ezer Mizion, under the supervision of Ministry of Health, and at the time was called Bone Marrow Donors Worldwide, we got certification and we opened up a registry. Now, a registry doesn't serve only its local population. A registry that's certified and is recognized by the international standard bearers of registries serves transplant patients all over the world. So at Ezer Mizion today, we work with transplant centers in over 40 countries who are looking for matches for their patients. And you understand that who are the people who are going to be matching our registered donors? Izo, tell me, where did they come from?
They come from all different types of countries and all different types of backgrounds, I'm guessing?
All different types of countries, all different types of backgrounds. What's their ethnic origin going to be?
So the ones
they're going to be of a Jewish ethnicity.
Right.
And that's where the match is going to happen. So Ezer Mizion today, we've constantly grown. We're very dedicated to this because there's still a very large percentage, as big as there's still a very large percentage of patients who are not finding matches.
Right.
And we'll get into that soon. But initially, do you have any questions?
Well, I'm still waiting to see how the registry works, but I'm loving this background.
Oh, how does the registry work? Okay.
Yeah.
So what used to happen was we would advertise, we would have a patient who needs a match. We would go out there and we would say, we have a patient. They come from this type of an ethnicity. You belong to that community. The likelihood of finding a match for this patient will be somebody from their ethnic community. If you belong to the Ashkenazi community, the Moroccan community, you're an Iraqi, you're a Taimani, a Yemenite, please join the registry. And people would come by the droves until we had 100,000 members, and then 200,000 members, and 300,000 members. In 2005, Ezer Mizion signed an agreement with the IDF, with the Israel Defense Forces. And this is an amazing, we call it the life-saving partnership, where every IDF recruit is given the opportunity as part of their induction into the Army to join Ezer Mizion's registry and to become part of a life-saving force. The Army is very proud of this collaboration. And the president of Israel spoke about it. He had an event in his home honoring the first 1,000 IDF soldiers who donated stem cells and saved lives. And he said this collaboration has catapulted the Israeli army for being an army that protects its borders and its local citizens to being an army that saves Jewish people all over the world. It's really a protector of the Jewish nation everywhere.
All right, so now,
how does the registry work?
There we go.
Right?
We're going to get there.
Okay. So if you're between the ages of 18 and 45, you're in good general health, and you've never joined a registry anywhere in the world, you are welcome and invited to join Ezer Mizion's stem cell registry or bone marrow registry. Usually we do that in Israel. We don't actively canvass because today we have, through the arrangement with the army, we have last year we had 57,000 people joining the registry in 2020. And most of them were through the IDF arrangement, and they cover the broad range of ethnic communities. They cover also a broad range of the ethnic combinations, because we have inter-community weddings, marriages, which have created new genetic combinations. And we're thank God, we're really, really, really doing very well in providing a response for cancer patients everywhere, and also for patients of autoimmune disease. What is joining the registry? It's a cheek swab. It's like brushing your teeth with your mother looking. Both sides. First you do one side, you swab your cheek with a very soft swab, you put it into the sterile envelope, you take out the other one, you do your other cheek, you put it in, it gets barcoded, you fill out a form, and you can forget about it until Ezer Mizion calls you and tells you, "Hi, Ezo, you are the lucky guy today. You've won the lottery. You are a match. You are a match for a patient somewhere around the world who needs you to donate your stem cells and save his life." Now, how do you think that feels?
So we're definitely going to get into that. That will feel, you probably have a bunch of different emotions going through that when you get that call.
Yeah.
I will tell you that my first experience with Ezer Mizion, I didn't know what it was. I was 17 years old. I was at a wedding in 2000. I want to say 2004, 2003, 2004, and the Chassan and Kala get up on the microphone after the first dance and said, "We are now going to go downstairs to the lobby of this hall, and we have partnered with Ezer Mizion, and they have come and they are setting up the registry right here." And they took the entire wedding downstairs.
Oh my goodness!
And they registered anybody that wanted to. I went and tried to register, and I was 17, so I was not able to. But that was my first experience, or even like being made aware of Ezer Mizion. Mike, so let's talk about what you brought up, that call. So first of all, what percentage of the people, I don't know if you know this number, that you call are automatically, let's do this? Do people renege on their decision? I'm sure they have a lot of questions, because at the time it's just swabbing your cheek, sending it into an envelope, putting an envelope and sending it in the mail. But now that it's a real possibility that somebody needs me, is there hesitancy? Is there excitement? What actually does go through people's minds?
Okay, well, you're asking a very, very, very good question. I think that Ezer Mizion, number one, I want to tell you, and I think that this is a credit not to Ezer Mizion, this is a credit to Klal Yisrael. Our response rate is among the highest in the world. Of donor renege, I think we have less than 2%.
Oh, wow.
And you have to understand that donor renege could also be because of an acquired health situation. It could be because of, let's say, a woman is pregnant and she can't at the time donate stem cells, or whatever other extenuating circumstances there might be. But generally, the thought of, oh wow, I can save someone's life by giving, I can donate my stem cells, which is basically like an intravenous, like you get a needle in one arm, a needle in the other arm, your blood gets drawn out, and you're lying on an armchair for 3-4 hours, and your blood gets right back into your body, and the stem cells that you donate regenerate within 2 weeks, and you're just good as new. hey, why wouldn't I do that? Think about what it means to the guy on the other end. It's true. International protocol does not allow you to know who it is, but that's more like to prevent extortion or whatever. Also, for many people emotionally, if the patient doesn't do well, then that's very, very, very devastating. But that's what it is. You're not allowed to know who it is. So if you're going to say yes and go ahead and do it, that means you're a very altruistic person. That means you understand the value of saving a life in a relatively easy way. Right, it's inconvenient, it's a hassle, you might lose a day of work, you might have to give up time, you might have to, it might entail some inconvenience for you. But what does it mean on the other end? It means giving a person the gift of life.
Wow. So we had previously on this podcast, we had Renewal on, and it's much more of a procedure to donate a kidney, to donate an organ. This is much less. So first of all, you can do this at your local like hospital, local medical facility. You don't have to fly somewhere necessarily to donate. Is that correct?
No, right. Absolutely. You don't have to, but we do have people who come to Israel. They opt to come and do it, to give the donation over here. But you don't have to.
And the recovery time is much more simple.
It's minimal. The truth is that the recovery from the procedure itself is like it's almost nothing. For 4 days before the donation, in order to promote the stem cells to come out to the peripheral blood where it's collected from, and not from what we call the bone marrow. The stem cells that are transplanted usually sit in the bone marrow. In order to encourage it to come out to the peripheral blood, so we can have a bigger amount of stem cells in the peripheral blood, for 4 days ahead of the donation, the donor gets certain injections. I think it's called Neupogen. And that could give a flu-y kind of feeling, maybe a little achy, a headache, tired, but that's okay. It passes a few days after and it's gone.
All right, so let me ask you this. You mentioned that you don't know who you're giving it to, and the recipient doesn't know who it came from. Can it happen 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line that they end up meeting if both parties say, yeah, let's do this? Is that something?
Well, if both parties are interested, it usually doesn't take 5, 10, or 15 years. Okay. They usually, international protocol is a minimum of a year. And then it depends on, of course, privacy is such a huge, major issue. They have to get privacy release, and it's a whole procedure. But after that,
but it does happen.
Both sides agree, yeah, absolutely. And some of our most emotional moments are when the stem cell donor and recipient meet. It's unbelievable. What do you say to someone who saved your life?
Right, exactly.
I don't know.
So let me go this way. Somebody has a relative that is in need of a stem cell transplant. Will a relative donating their bone marrow or donating their stem cells have any impact on their relative who needs it? Getting a match, getting a
well, if they're a match, then they'll be the one.
Right.
But I think that everyone should just join, anyone who fits the criteria. And it's very interesting that you're asking this, because many, many times people who have been exposed, a family member or a friend or someone they know needed a stem cell transplant, that will encourage a lot of people to say, oh, I will join. I want to join a registry, because if I could be the one to save someone's life, I want to be there for that.
Right.
I want to experience that thrill, that rush of adrenaline, of that knowledge that I'm ready. I'm a good person. I'm here. I'm ready to do it. Hineni. I will give it. I will do it. I want to be there for somebody, and it doesn't matter that I don't know who it is. And I think that it's such a beautiful thing. And I know that donors have said, even if they've never met the person they donated to, that it's one of the most empowering, uplifting, inspiring experiences of their life.
Phenomenal. I do have a question, because we are talking a lot about stem cells, and when people hear that, there's always like morality issues that come up, halachic issues that come up. What is the response to people like saying, wait, is this actually a good thing to do? Is this actually allowed? Is this halakhically permissible?
I don't know of any halachic issues with this. I can tell you that by protocol, you are not allowed to join the registry because until you're 18, you're under your parents' jurisdiction. And if you would be found to be a match, and let's say your parents would want you to do it and you wouldn't want to do it, then you would be doing it because your parents, then so we don't accept people under 18. We don't accept people over 45, even though they will stay on our registry till 60, but that's just because the transplant centers prefer younger donors, because younger donors bring better outcomes. Of all the members in the registry from age 18 till 60, 75% of the transplants that we do every year are from donors that the transplant centers choose. This is their authority. They do that. They make the choice because it's their responsibility. They will choose younger donors. Younger is better. So that's why we have people say, "Why? I'm only 46. I'm young. I'm not old yet." No. It has nothing to do with us. Nothing personal. But that's the international protocol.
Right, so
we're going back to, if you're asking what might be, is there any limitations? Yeah, there's international protocol, and that's how we go. Halachically, I've never heard that there's any kind of a problem.
All right.
It's not an organ. It's something that within 2 weeks it regenerates. It doesn't have any implications on the donor's health.
Let's get into the numbers in Ezer Mizion. How many people do you currently have in the registry? I know you already mentioned, I was going to ask you how many countries. You already mentioned you're over 40 countries.
Right.
Let's go. How many are on the registries? How many lives have Ezer Mizion, can Ezer Mizion take credit for helping save?
Well, I really give the credit not just to Ezer Mizion, but to our very, very, very dedicated donors. Ezer Mizion's, our stem cell donors. Ezer Mizion's registry is the 5th largest registry in the world, which in itself is a huge Kiddush Hashem, because if you look at it, Ezer Mizion is located in Israel, and Israel is where we do most of our donor recruitment. Israel is a very tiny country. So we have a huge percentage of this age, the population of this in this age span, who are members in Ezer Mizion's registry. Right now we have 1,080,000 and counting as of June 1st, active members on our registry. And lives saved, we've saved as of June 1st, and I'm hoping by July 1st we'll cross a big milestone. We are up to 3,988 patients.
All right.
Whose lives have, and now if at an average of about around 32 stem cell transplants a month, next month, Ezer Hashem, we will be over 4,000 transplants.
Phenomenal.
I do want to say something that's very, very important. Ezer Mizion facilitates 67% of its transplants outside of Israel, meaning that when people say, "Oh, Ezer Mizion, it's an organization far away," when you hear an appeal or somebody comes and says, "Please help save lives," when you come and you're supporting Ezer Mizion, you could be very likely supporting an organization that will save the life of someone you care about, of someone that you love, because more than 2/3 of the transplants that we're involved in are happening overseas and not in Israel. They're happening in America, they're happening in Canada, they're happening in the UK, they're happening in South America, they're happening all over the world.
So I know we mentioned a little bit of the other areas where Ezer Mizion does help. I do have a personal question, and I apologize to my audience because as many people know who listen to this podcast, I have a daughter with an autoinflammatory issue. I know that you deal with autoimmune diseases as well. So what particular? So we've been talking a lot about bone marrow registry and stem cells. What are you doing in terms of the autoimmune patients that you deal with?
Well, remember, our place in this chain of facilitating stem cell transplant is not determining anything about the patient. It's not determining anything about the condition. We have no say in the treatment protocol. That's the medical team that's in the transplant center that's responsible for the patient. But the fact remains that as a therapy protocol, stem cell transplants are being used for more and more autoimmune conditions. I know personally about 2 weeks ago, a boy celebrated his bar mitzvah. When he was 8 months old, he was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and he had a very grim diagnosis. And they knew that if he will not find a matching donor, he has zero life expectancy in a very short time. And Baruch Hashem, he found a donor at Ezer Mizion's registry. The donor's name is Ziv. And I remember when they met, the parents of this little boy, who was already 2 years old when they met, over 2, and they said, Ziv is light. You have brought light into our lives. And the name of the patient is Avichai. And when Ziv got married, Avichai was right there at the wedding. He said, I already have a boy. He's not my little brother. He could be my son. It was it's unbelievable. And they just had their bar mitzvah last week. So that's as far as autoimmune. We have a lot of kids with bubble syndrome. Is that what it's called? That the children have no immune system and they have to be, Yeah. And I think that it's cutting edge. There's a lot of stem cell research being done of brain therapy and things like Parkinson's. So we don't know. We don't know where the next horizon is. But again, we are into the providing it, into facilitating it. And we're there for the patients today and now and for the future. Please, God.
When we have nonprofit and tzedakah organizations on here and we're talking about donors, we generally talk about a different type of donation. But obviously the bulk of this conversation was talking about donating parts of people's bodies. But what about the financial side of this? How can people get involved? And I'm assuming you guys run mostly on donations, both of the bone marrow variety and the dollar variety.
Okay, so as far as our total organizational budget, about 50% is from government allocation service provision. 50% is in kind and cash donations. Now, with our budget of an annual budget of over $100 million a year, do the quick math.
Right.
We have to raise a lot of money. Our registry, though, is only about $16.5 million a year.
Only.
Of which, of which about 30% is donations. And the more that we have, the more we're able to do. And that's the bottom line. So
I do want to bring up that here in America, you're having a golf outing coming up that people want to get involved. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Right, sure. Our golf tournament on July 26th at the Sea Wayne Club. It's a tradition of already 11 years running, except for Corona, which we would be 12 years old already, but Corona was, we're not counting. We took a hiatus. And there's a dedicated, amazing team, chairman and committee who are really, really, really dedicated to the cause of saving lives. They really believe in it. They believe in helping people everywhere. And I want to tell you something phenomenal. From the money that's been raised at the golf tournaments, we have sponsored several thousand, the joining at the registry of several thousand new members. What does it mean sponsoring? That the golf tournament paid for their lab testing when they initially joined the registry, which is $50 each new member. Now, when you're talking about 57,000 new people a year, that's millions of dollars. Okay, right? You get it?
Yeah,
and that's only the lab testing. I'm not talking about anything else. So what we do is we've tagged these people that were funded by the golf tournaments, and we put them into a pool. This pool is called the Hole-in-One Donor Registry. And I'm very excited to share with you that we know of 88 patients who have been saved from members of the Hole-in-One Donor Pool who's joining the registry was sponsored by golf. So could you imagine this? You're playing golf, you sponsored a golf tournament, and you're saving lives, and it's documented. Well, that's what's happening. Wow. And I feel that the people who are involved in this are not just having a good time. It brings their golfing, it brings their involvement in sports into a whole totally different platform, a whole totally different level.
Phenomenal. Where can people go to if they want to register for the golf outing?
www.ezermizion, EzerMizion.org. And it's right there on the homepage.
Terrific.
Yeah.
And even if you don't want to go, you could still sponsor. You could still provide.
You could
sponsorship.
sponsor. You could donate. You could take a part at Ezer Mizion, even if you're over 45 or under 18, and you want to be part of it. There's place for you too.
And on that website, you can also donate regular dollars, just like anyone,
for any other one of our many services that are benefiting people on a more local, maybe more local kind of a way, but people who are either English speaking and live in Israel, or who have people that they love living in Israel and want to sponsor and support and help a major chesed organization. We need you here with us. Thank you.
Do you have any other fundraising mechanisms that you haven't, so you want to let us know about now?
Well, we have our New York office, and they have from time to time different events and different opportunities to get on board. One of them is we're going to be having a charity campaign at the end of the summer before Rosh Hashanah. People want to join then, you're more than welcome. And then we have our annual Chinese auction, and then local events we've had in Englewood, we've had in Teaneck, we had in Los Angeles, and it keeps going. Yeah, different communities who want to get on board. We have community donor pools, and we let them know the nicest day of the month for me every month is when I have the job of reporting to donor pool sponsors, you've saved a life.
That's amazing.
There's nothing like it.
By the way, I feel bad because we spoke about, the registry, and we spoke about what it takes with the spots, but I didn't ask you if, let's say I'm a 20-year-old person that wants to get on the registry, where do I go? How do I order that kit?
Contact our New York office.
Okay. And
www.ezermizion.org.
All right. Terrific. And obviously you can learn more on the website, which we've already mentioned a couple of times. And we'll list in the show notes.
Right.
Are you on social,
right.
Is the organization on social media anywhere?
Right. There's a Facebook page. Sure.
Okay.
Check us
we'll
out.
link, and I looked at there is a Twitter account and an Instagram account, but I don't think it's
Twitter, Instagram, right.
I think the big point is Facebook. I think that's where you have the most followers.
Right.
And is the most constantly updated.
Right.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to let us know before we let you go?
That Klal Yisrael is one body, and we're all together in this, and that I feel that it's an amazing, amazing privilege to be able to help people, Jewish people and humanity everywhere, all around the world.
Phenomenal. Hadassah, thank you so much for joining me this week. I know that it's probably, right now it's 10 o'clock, it's almost 11 o'clock in the morning here in America, but it's getting late over there in Israel. So I thank you so much for staying in your office, it looks like, from what I'm looking at, this late. Very, very appreciative.
It's fine. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much. Waiting to share good news from everyone, everywhere. Take care.
Absolutely.
All the best.
My thanks to Hadassah Somosi for joining me this week to discuss the good work done by Ezer Mizion, of which we merely scratched the surface, because there's just so much more that we could talk about. If you're interested in donating or attending this summer's golf outing, check the show notes for a link to their page. If you're interested in learning about another organization who deals with transplants, you can check out episode 46, How to Save a Life, with Rabbi Josh Sturm of Renewal. And if you're interested in learning about raising children with genetic and chronic conditions, you can check out episode 21, where, among other things, you can learn a little bit more about my family. Until next time, Kol Tov.
The Jewish Living Podcast is produced by Sreli Paikus. Our theme song is The Band by A.B. Rottenberg. Follow us on Facebook at The Jewish Living Podcast and on Twitter and Instagram at Jewish_living. You can also email the show at jewishlivingpodcast@gmail.com. The Jewish Living Podcast is recorded in conjunction with the Queen's Jewish Link.